All right, Tzion b'mishpat Tipadeh is the verse. It's actually a verse from Isaiah. It's speaking about the redemption. And last week we started this maamar. It's a Tisha B'Av maamar. Actually, Shabbos Chazon, the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, Tovshin Lamed Vav, 1976. And let's continue with chapter 4. We did the first 3 chapters. And you remember we were speaking about Sovev and Memaleh and all that good stuff. But basically, how Torah can be, your favorite words, Sovev and Memaleh, how Torah can be eternal, because it's not within time, it's not even outside of time. It is connected to the essence of Hashem, which cannot be categorized by either descriptions of in time or out of time, inside of time, above time. All right, chapter 4. So again, the driving thing here is we're trying to understand the eternality of the Torah, that the Torah seems new to us every single day, which, if you remember from last week, where we get this concept from is from the Alter Rebbe's maamar of the same name. And the Rebbe is analyzing the Alter Rebbe's maamar. Okay, chapter 4. V'yesh l'haisef, the Rebbe says that it's possible to add. And when the Rebbe says v'yesh l'haisef, it's possible to add, that means the Rebbe is offering his own unique interpretation. The way to keep Torah new in our eyes every single day is through Yichud, Sovev and Memaleh. Yichud, Sovev and Memaleh, I'll translate each word. Yichud, unification. Sovev, the encompassing. Memaleh, the filling. We have the Oyer Sovev, the Oyer Memaleh, the encompassing light and the filling light. The light which does not comport itself with the limitations of the created beings, and the light which very specifically does comport itself with the limitations of the created beings, in order to enliven each one of them according to their specific capacities. And then there's Yichud, Sovev and Memaleh, the unification of these 2 different categories of divine energy. Sovev, Yorgish b'ha'adam b'pnimius. And when we say Yichud, Sovev and Memaleh, we don't just mean, in order to accomplish this concept, that above time, which corresponds to Sovev, should become felt within time, which is Memaleh. Remember we were saying before, something that is Sovev is not felt because its relationship with that which it acts upon is what we call, it's not bipnimios. Bipnimios doesn't mean spatially inside or outside. What it means is, does it condense itself in accordance with the capacity of the thing that it's acting upon? If it doesn't, then it has a more transcendent relationship with the thing that it's affecting, and in subjective terms, what we describe that as is not being felt. You don't feel it. Okay, so the Rebbe says this Yichud, Sovev and Memaleh is not just in order that which is Sovev or encompassing should be felt in a pnimios, but rather because the concept of keeping Torah new itself, contains within it a paradox of above time and within time. So it's not just like we said earlier, we said last week, we need a Yichud, Sovev and Memaleh in order that the normally unfeelable should be feelable. But the Rebbe says it's much deeper than that. It's much more essential than that. Just the concept, the very concept itself of Torah being new all the time requires a paradox. And in order to sustain that paradox, we need Yichud, Sovev and Memaleh. He explains what that paradox is. Sharei inyan dechadoshim v'hayeker v'hachavivos shebezehu hashinoi. The idea of newness, something being new, and that's a precious thing, that's a cherished thing. like the new car smell. That's newness. Sometimes newness is said like dismissively, like, this thing's new, newfangled. But sometimes new is a virtue. So the concept of newness as a virtue, as a desirable quality, that actually inherently denotes change, or the concept of change. Which means it just came out. It didn't exist, now it does. So newness actually implies that something, a new development, something has changed. There's something here that was not here before. But when we say Torah should be new in your eyes all the time, the newness comes from the fact that it's unchanging. So normal newness inherently denotes change, a new development. But the newness of Torah is the concept of it's being unchanging. It's always new, which is not a concept in regular life. It's always new. That's like an inherent contradiction. That's an oxymoron. V'nimtza dezeh inyan debachol yem kachadoshim hu al yedei yichud Sovev and Memaleh. So therefore it comes out the concept that every day Torah should be as if it were new to you requires the yichud Sovev and Memaleh, and not just, like we said earlier, so that that which is Sovev could be felt in a pnimios, that which is transcendent should actually be experienced subjectively. Like we said last week, the reason we want to make it new is so it feels fresh, so you get motivated to do it, right? It's a motivator. Ella, but now we're saying it's more than that. Yeseder Mizu, much more than that. Shazman atzmesh mitzad oir hamamaleh hu ba'efen de l'maylam izman v'shinoi gilu yaseviv. It's what we're talking about here is that time itself, which time is a reflection of Memaleh, should operate in a way that transcends change, which that is a reflection of Sovev. So that itself is inherently a paradox. V'yesh loima. So it's possible to say, now that Rebbe suggests a further chiddush, a further novel interpretation. This concept we alluded to earlier, that when you do mitzvahs, it should be with the attitude that these are new rules, not old rules, that just came out. But it's not just in order to give you more excitement to do the mitzvahs. Ella, but rather, or shagam, but also, the concept itself is related to the very performance of the mitzvahs. In other words, the very performance of the mitzvahs as opposed to what? Your excitement about doing the mitzvahs. It seemed, up to this point, that the reason that we need to see Torah as new is really just to keep our excitement going. Now that Rebbe is saying it may have a much more basic connection than that. It may not just be about our excitement. It may actually have to do with the performance of the mitzvah itself, which it's going to explain now. Now, the mitzvahs, what do mitzvahs do? They accomplish yichud, we'll use that word again, the unification, of Kudsha Brichu, that's Aramaic for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which means the Holy One, blessed be He, and Shchinte, again, that's Aramaic, for His Shchina. So Yichud Kudsha Brichu Shchinte. You may recognize those words. there are various different prayers that, according to different nuschos, different prayer rites, they'll say L'Shem Yichud Kuch B'Richu Shchinte before different mitzvahs. The Nusach Ari, we say it before Baruch Sha'amar, and then it goes on any other mitzvah that we may perform that day. But the concept of Yichud Kuch B'Richu Shchinte means the unification of two aspects of godliness. And you could call them the masculine and the feminine, if you will. And that when we do a mitzvah, we bring about the unification of those two aspects of godliness. So, what we're about to say here is that is synonymous with Yichud Sovev and Memaleh. So the concept of Yichud Sovev and Memaleh, which we were just speaking about, and Yichud Kuch B'Richu Shchinte, those are the same concept, and that the purpose of the mitzvahs is to bring about Yichud Kuch B'Richu Shchinte. So, what are we saying? We're saying that we thought that seeing Torah as new was just so that we would remain excited about it, which is important, but that's not the mitzvah itself. That's our feeling about the mitzvah. Now we're saying, no, it's much deeper than that. The mitzvahs themselves require or bring about Yichud Kuch B'Richu Shchinte, which is synonymous with Yichud Sovev and Memaleh.
And what's the benefit of that?
What's the benefit of it?
Like, why are we trying to bring those two aspects of Hashem together?
Well, why is there a creation at all? Why does anything exist as we know it? Why didn't Hashem just continue existing in the manner in which he existed for eternity before creation? So you're asking me big philosophical questions. I'm asking you even bigger philosophical questions. By the way, my bigger philosophical question is not random. It actually, by upping the ante, it'll force you to answer your own question.
I mean, it's just it's the way of doing the Diur B'Taxonomy, like that's the answer to everything.
Diur B'Taxonomy is the answer to everything, yes. The ultimate oneness of Hashem was not reflected in there being only Hashem. The ultimate oneness of Hashem is that Hashem creates an other, and that even after there's an other, there is no other, there's only Hashem.
I don't understand.
I think you understand. That's the fullness of Hashem's oneness, is that there is no possibility of true otherness. So where is that exhibited? Not in what we'll call pre-creation, because then there's only Hashem's existence, so maybe he's just the only thing that exists so far. But after creation comes into being, then we could truly say that no, even when other things exist, only Hashem exists. Which is a bit of a paradox, but that's the whole point.
So after creation, did Hashem's Shekhinah and himself kind of split?
So Kuch B'Richu Shchinte, I guess let's talk more specifically about those names without getting too deeply into it. Kuch B'Richu, like I said, is Kodesh Baruch Hu. The word Kodesh, we translate often as holy. Really it means separate. Kodesh Umuvdal. Holy means separate. Holy is actually a kind of non-Jewish translation of Kodesh. Kodesh really means set aside, removed. Exclusive, designated, yeah. So in terms of divine names, we're talking about an energy within divinity which is aloof. It's not interested in creation, although it possesses the building blocks of creation. It also corresponds to what we call Zeranpin, which is the 6 emotional energies. Shchinte is Malchus, the feminine, that receives from Kuch B'Richu, becomes impregnated and gives birth to worlds. So Yichud Kuch B'Richu Shchinte is uniting the aspect of Hashem which is uninterested in finitude with the maternal aspect of Hashem which just wants to take care of its finite little babies. Mitzvahs are interesting because they have to take place in the physical world. Mitzvahs are inherently a phenomenon of the time-space limited plane. You can only do a mitzvah, put it very simple. Let's speak very down-to-earth language, although this itself is somewhat metaphysical. You can only do mitzvahs while you're alive in a body. And then even while you're alive in a body, you can't do every mitzvah all the time. There are certain conditions of time and space. You can't sit in a sukkah without being in a sukkah. And you can't do it on Pesach. It's got to be sukkahs. Mitzvahs require us to deal with time-space. And the point of that is to reveal the oneness of Hashem within time-space, within the limitation. So that's what Yichud Sovev and Memaleh means. That's what Yichud Kudshabichu Shchintem means. And ultimately, to answer your question, it's all for the purpose of revealing Hashem's ultimate infinity, which is not relegated to being outside of limitations, but can also and must also be expressed within limitations. Okay, so that's what we're describing here. We're saying that a mitzvah is an inherent testimony to Yichud Sovev and Memaleh. So when we said, backing up, that Torah is new all the time, it's not just to motivate us. It's that too. But Torah being new all the time is actually part and parcel of its being a paradox of above time and in time at the same time. Okay? Because you understand, new all the time is itself an oxymoron.
Well, the whole world is new every second.
Now you're asking something good. Okay, all right, okay. The whole world is new all the time. All right. Where'd you learn that? In Shar Yichud V'Amunah, right? Okay, fine. The whole world is new all the time. Yeah. So what do you want to do with that concept?
I think it goes seamlessly here.
So you're saying we'll just add it to the...
It's coming from the comment section.
Yeah, coming from the comments. So the Rebbe said that new means something that wasn't here before. And now it is. The way that the world is new, yesh ma'ayin means that it wasn't here before, even though it was here a second ago, but it's not the same world. So I'm not sure if that's the same newness that when we speak of Torah, we say it's new, because Torah was here before. The world didn't always exist. Torah always existed. And Torah existed before the world. So I think it's a little bit different.
Why are you saying Torah always existed? Did Hashem create the Torah?
No, Hashem never created the Torah. No, God forbid. Just like Hashem did not create himself. As we've learned, Torah is not a book that God made. Torah is Hashem in book form. It is himself. Torah and Hashem are entirely one. It's not his book, it's him. I wrote myself and gave myself through the medium of Torah. We learned about this in the previous maamar, our Shavuos maamar that we learned. Okay, let's finish off this chapter. The kaven shavedas ha'adam isarusa de lasata shal yoda naisis ha'amshacha isarusa de la'ela tzricha liyes ma'ena amshacha. Now, we have this principle here, that the isarusa de lasata has to be similar or reminiscent of the isarusa de la'ela. These are Aramaic terms. What do they mean? Isarusa de lasata, the arousal from below. Isarusa de la'ela, the arousal from above. What does that mean? Talking about the relationship between us and Hashem. So an arousal from below means what we do for Hashem. Arousal from above means what Hashem does for us. What we just said is that in this system of these reciprocating actions, the arousal from below has to be similar or reminiscent of that which it triggers. Has to be midah keneged midah, has to be measure for measure, has to have a similarity. Lochein, therefore, kishakima mitzvahs dahadam hu ba'efen shbechol yem heim be'einav kachadoshim. When a person does mitzvahs in a manner where he sees mitzvahs as brand new, chibur d'zman im l'maylam azman, which is the unification of that which is above time and that which is in time. Al yedei zeh, so then through this, mitaysev gili ayichud the Sovev and Memaleh shenaisa al yedei mitzvahs, that intensifies the revelation of the yichud Sovev and Memaleh that is accomplished through the mitzvah. In other words, mitzvahs themselves are yichud Sovev and Memaleh, or yichud kudsha shchinte, the paradox of the timeless within the time. And therefore, when we view mitzvahs as new, that means we are forcing ourselves to relate to mitzvahs in that way. And so therefore, it's not just it increases our energy and excitement to do the mitzvahs, but it actually lends itself more to the very essence of what mitzvahs are. And like we said, because the arousal from below has to match the arousal from above, it puts us more in alignment with what mitzvahs really are. So it's a deeper connection, this concept, yeah.
Does the newness of the mitzvah depend on the person? Meaning, if they're not experiencing it as new, are they able to draw down? Is it all about their intent? Like, how does that work?
You're saying, does your feeling that the mitzvah is new affect how much the mitzvah will accomplish in the world? How much?
Well, the whole point is the newness. It has to be new to that person in order to bring down Sovev. That's our job. It sounds like the newness is a big part of it.
No, but
Yes.
It sounds like that's what the definition of the mitzvah is, inherently.
It is inherently the definition of the mitzvah, correct. But there are degrees to which that will be reflected in the world. So what we're saying is the more we're in alignment with that, the more we intensify. Yes, that's what the mitzvah is anyway. Mm-hmm. And presumably it would be that even if someone had zero intent. Mm-hmm. In fact, I should take out the word presumably. Yet we intensify that by having an intent which is aligned with the truth of a mitzvah. In other words, in this maamar, we're offering a new definition for a mitzvah. There's so many different ways to look at mitzvahs. What are mitzvahs? Commandments, yeah. Connections, yeah. Right now, we're looking at mitzvahs as
Opportunities for realignment.
well, opportunities for realignment, yeah. I was going to say that more as a secondary thing. I was going to say that a mitzvah is how the eternal is reflected within time. And that therefore, when we do the mitzvah, we should align ourselves with that. And how do we align ourselves with this very philosophical idea of the paradox of the timelessness within time? The simple way to sum it up is, if you can do something which was commanded over 3,000 years ago, and you can feel as if it were just commanded today, you just got a text alert on your phone that said, we have a new rule, then that is called Yichud Sovev and Memaleh. That is Yichud Kudsha B'Yichud Shchinte. Yeah.
Usually new rules evoke like some sort of resistance.
Yeah, you think about your school trauma when they would, yeah. We have a new set of rules. Did you read and sign the new set of rules for the school year? Actually, is this trauma from when you were a student or from when you're a mother of students? Probably more recent. Yeah. Okay. No, we don't mean draconian rules.
Why can't it be new opportunities?
Yes, but rules are opportunities. These are not. No, this is.
Boundaries.
These are good rules. This is not people trying to control you.
Rabbi Taub,
Yeah.
so everything we learned about Sovev synonymous with Kuchabrichu? Like,
So yeah, we're Kuchbrichu and Shchinte. You could view right now, for you, as you know from learning this. Everything is relative, depends on our vantage point. But for now, within this context, yeah, Kuchabrichu and Shchinte you could use synonymously with Sovev and Memaleh. Okay. All right, let's do chapter 5.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, is the newness the connection with infinity in a sense? So, like, infinity inherently has this
Yeah.
potential of.
So you know, if you ask anybody to describe infinity, they can't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then, how do we have a connection to such a thing?
Mm-hmm.
The way we sum it up is the newness. Yeah.
So that's ultimately what we're talking. So, newness is connecting to infinity
Yes.
possibility.
Newness is connecting with infinity, true infinity, which transcends the classifications of infinite and finite. Meaning, it doesn't have to be outside of the finite. It can even be inside of the finite.
And so if the Torah is infinite, just like Hashem is infinite, that's why it's always new. Because
Right.
and something new that you could draw out from Torah always.
Right.
The
It is.
differences, that's the awareness, that's the self-reflections that we each have in our own
Yes.
way of seeing
Correct.
things.
Correct. Yes. Yes. Okay. Let's do chapter 5. All right. V'hinei shnei onyonim d'Sovev and Memaleh hem shnei Hashem is Havaye and Elokim. Now we have some more labels for you. Taxonomy. The two concepts of Sovev and Memaleh are the two divine names, Havaye and Elokim. Now, I cannot take for granted that everybody here is in the Tanya class on Monday. So I'll just remind you that there are many different divine names, but two primarily that we speak of, Havaye and Elokim. Havaye is how we pronounce colloquially the four-letter name, sometimes called tetragrammaton, the four-letter name, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. We do not pronounce that name. We do not even pronounce the letters consecutively. We pronounce it as Havaye. That is Hoya Hoiva V'Yiyeh. The four letters Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey are Hoya, was, Hoiva is, Yiyeh will be. All at once. So Hoya Hoiva V'Yiyeh is the transcendent godliness. Elokim is the energy within creation. Elokim is also the gematria hateva, the nature, the way the world works. So you have Havaye and Elokim, the transcendent and the immanent.
So it's Elokim, Memaleh, and Havaye.
So what we're saying is, yes, Havaye and Sovev are one concept, and Elokim and Memaleh are another concept. Yes. Okay. Ukamavur bekama mekemes d'shem Elokim hu loy rak hamogin v'nartik shemaylim master ala or d'shem Havaye. Like it's explained in many places, that not only does Elokim serve as a shield for Havaye, like we say, Kishemesh umagin Havaye Elokim. Not only is Elokim the filter, the buffer that masks the transcendent Havaye from us, Ela shegam ha'or d'shem Havaye kamesh nimshach u'mitzantzem ha'yidei shem Elokim liyes makar l'nivroim, but rather that even the light of Havaye, as it's drawn down and limited by Elokim, and then becomes the source for the created beings, shebechlalus hu oir ha-Memaleh, which that is the Memaleh light, nikra Elokim is called Elokim. In other words, it's not just that Havaye is being masked by Elokim, but rather also, what are we saying? That the light of Havaye is called Elokim when it's drawn down in that concealed fashion. Valpia yadua dezeh shaguf mailum al hanefesh hu ki sheidish hanefesh hu mavaya. For instance, there's a known concept that how can the body conceal the soul? Like, how can that happen? How can the body, which is merely physical, mask the soul, which is spiritual, much more powerful? It shouldn't be able to do that. It comes from the fact that the source of the soul is from the name Havaye. Ki sheirish hanefesh hu mahavaya. V'sheirish haguf hu Elokim, and the source of the body is the name Elokim. V'lochin kemesh Elokim mailim al Havaye. Therefore, just like Elokim can conceal Havaye, kein haguf mailim al nefesh, so too the body can conceal the soul. Yesh leimar, and it's possible to say, the Rebbe suggests a novel interpretation. Shal derech zehu gam bo'inyan de Sovev and Memaleh. Maybe we could say the same thing about Sovev and Memaleh. Shagam oir ha'memaleh nikra Elokim k'nizkir, because remember, Memaleh can also be called Elokim. Shebichdei she'adam yeda v'yargisha ikerhu inyanei hanashama v'inyanei haguf heim rak tafel, in order for a person to feel that the matters of the soul are primary. Remember, we spoke about this at the beginning of the maamar. And that the matters of the body are secondary. That that his material welfare is not his main concern in life. That actually is a unification of Sovev and Memaleh, meaning to be able to live your life in this world, but not to be primarily concerned with your status in the world. That itself is a yichud Sovev and Memaleh. The ba'er Memaleh kameshu mitzad atzmei liyesei makar linivroim v'hanivroim teifsim makim lagabe. When you talk about Memaleh, in the scheme of Memaleh, it's the source of energy for the created beings, and therefore creation is quite significant from the perspective of Memaleh. He calls it tfisas makim. It takes up space. It's relevant. Yesh tfisas makim l'inyanei aguf, and therefore physical matters, bodily matters, are important. However, through the unification of Sovev and Memaleh, shagam ba'ha'or kameshanayse makar la'elamais meir hagili da'er ein sof shalamaylamaylamais, which means the paradox that even the revelation of Hashem's infinite light that transcends the worlds can be present and felt within the worlds, the kulikame kolei chashiv, where you feel that everything before Hashem is as naught. Then you're able to perceive that the matters of the body are only significant in as much as they service the soul. So, what we're saying is the ability to contextualize or prioritize physicality in a healthy way is itself a yichud Sovev and Memaleh. It's understanding that the physical exists because if you're coming from a perspective of Memaleh, the whole purpose of Memaleh is to give rise to physical creation. So it surely exists. But then there's this Sovev attitude of, but how can it be important? Hashem is transcendent. Hashem is infinite. This tiny little speck doesn't mean anything to him. And then the yichud Sovev and Memaleh is, but the physical is important in as much as it services the agenda of the spiritual. Yeah.
The physical is so important because it's the vessel that
Expresses Hashem's infinity, yes.
Yeah, because there
But
would
that's
be no Soulwords
correct.
without Memaleh.
Beautiful, that's right.
Soviet's already there, we just reveal it.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what we're saying. So what we're saying is that on its own, it's meaningless.
Right.
That's right. Okay. So prioritizing the spiritual over the physical is not as black and white as it sounded to us before, where it sounded like they were mutually exclusive. It's either or. That's not what prioritization truly means. Now we're understanding the nuance of it.
So how do we really, like practically?
The nuance of it is,
like, how do we?
what does 5 towns have to do
No,
with
I'm just saying, like, because I know the rabbi likes to announce to the followers. Where
Oh,
we're at.
yeah.
Not like I live on a farm and whatever. You know what I'm saying?
So you're saying if we lived in a farm, we'd be less into the
Maybe
physical.
less into the material. I mean, we might buy expensive cows and hay, but yeah, or silos. We might make them out of glass.
So you're asking, you want me to do the 30-second Instagram clip?
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, we have such a talented team at SoulWords who go through all of my content. And I was just speaking to our chief social media video editor, and she was saying that when she goes through this class, it's very hard to find clips. Like there are classes that, like lectures, let's say, where it's not text-based, and there are good little lines to take it, one-liners, yeah. And when we're learning the maamar, it's like, yeah, it's like, where do you get the cool meme type lines? So you want the meme version of this. Okay, so what we're saying is like this. It's not going to be total meme level because we are
I'm really not
in
asking for a meme version.
Okay.
I'm asking how
An
do we
actionable-
be honest
okay.
with ourselves to know that our material is really here to serve as spiritual and not for our own like luxury and benefit.
Yeah. Well,
Because we're human
I mean, you basically
beings.
said it. Yeah. I
What?
mean, you basically said it. That's it.
Saying, how do you know?
How do you know? Yeah.
Like I could just link it and say like, yeah, it's for my
Yeah, it's for mitzvahs. Yeah.
Checking with your rabbi. No,
No,
we don't want to
nothing
be
to do with the
reliant on a
rabbi.
rabbi. We
That's
want
to
to.
do
That's-
with yourself, your own integration.
I'm checking in with my rabbi.
Okay. Okay. So you want to have a sense of, you want clarity regarding if you're doing this yichud Sovev and Memaleh. Because what you're understanding now, as the maamar has led us to understand, is that prioritizing the spiritual over the physical does not require asceticism, and in fact would probably even discourage asceticism. So it's not about taking a vow of poverty.
And the Lubavitcher Rebbe was very into like beautifying our homes and, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
physicality is really important as long as it is
Connected to first.
right. So how do we do that authentically? Like
How do we do it
really?
authentically? I mean, honestly, you're probably not going to like this answer, but I would say learning this maamar. Like, because you already cast aspersions on the good people of 5 towns, but you know, if you're saying, oh, they're so materialistic. By the way, I think Brooklyn's far worse. People in Brooklyn, leave your comments, agree or disagree. It's just good for the algorithm, you know. By the way, outrage bait is the best thing for the, yeah. Okay.
You didn't even know Lakewood.
What Lakewood, yeah. If you're from Lakewood and you want to talk about materialism in the era Torah, comment, like, subscribe, and donate. Yeah. Learning the maamar. Honestly, I would. You can get up all you want and say, don't be materialistic, and you know, some communities have takonos where they limit how much you're allowed to display your wealth. But I think the real answer, it's a great question. I think the real answer is, until you understand it deeply, it's just another, well, you're talking about draconian rules earlier. And until you understand it deeply, then this is just another draconian rule. So I would say learn the maamar and understand the manner of yichud Sovev and Memaleh, understand the role of the physical and the spiritual. And when you understand these concepts in a deeper way, yeah, then I think it will be more intuitive. And you will be able to make an honest self-assessment and say, oh, so I do need a new car because it will actually improve my spiritual life. Oh no, I don't actually need a new car to improve my spiritual life. The clarity comes from learning these concepts. That's really the answer.
So physical that's not linked.
Physical that's not linked to spiritual, meaning just for its own sake.
Then what?
Tanya says it's ra gomor. It's absolute evil. But I don't like saying it because it scares people, because people have been traumatized by words like wicked and evil, and then they just give up. But
it all has potential in it still. You could at any time elevate it.
well, okay, very good point. It all has potential, but in this case it doesn't, because you just cashed in the potential. Not you, God forbid. But klipas noiga, which means the neutral klippa, which has the potential to go either way, yeah, that's as long as it's potential. But once you're using it in a certain way, no, it's not malleable like that anymore. You just directed its potential. You just cashed it in. So if you use it in a selfish or indulgent way, now, unfortunately, at least that to whatever extent it's been used up, that has been lost energy. Now, of course, there's tshuva, and it's not. And you could go learn chapter 7 of Tanya, and it explains all of that. But I don't want to break our flow so much. And at any rate, okay.
Isn't that analogous to like a reform or a conservative Jew having potential?
I don't know. We mentioned so many contentious things today. Okay.
Let's finish off with a meme at least. We
with a
go back
meme.
to the meme. No pressure.
It has to just come spontaneously. Let's see. I'm going to keep it in the back of my mind to try to load one. And when I feel like I have one, you'll see me look at the camera and be like, I'll do my meme. Okay. Now could explain that which is written in Likutei Torah. The Alter Rebbe is my maamar. The kasheloi yeshnoi ha'inyin de bechol yem kachadashim azai hamarirus v'hatainik shaloihem in yonei elam hazeh. The Alter Rebbe said something which in the first chapter of this maamar we were challenging. The Alter Rebbe made an assertion, fairly blanket assertion, that if somebody does not see Torah as new, then it's like he's doomed, that he will see that his bitterness and joy are all linked to matters of this world. Bitterness and joy, meaning that which he likes and dislikes, will all be physical things. And we asked a question at the beginning of the maamar, really? Like, seeing the Torah as new, I get it, that's a wonderful thing, but if you don't do that, then you are doomed to all of your moods being reactions to your material welfare. Remember we asked that question in chapter 1? Okay, hold on. So let's get to the answer here. In order to bring about the unification of Sovev and Memaleh, so that the matters of the physical world will not be significant to him. I know that sounds very scary to people. Well, it sounds scary to some people and exhilarating to others. I'm more concerned about the people to whom it sounds exhilarating. The world is not teifus makim. The world is insignificant. So it scares people who are like, but I just redid my kitchen. So now to be a good Jew, I have to not care about that. But it exhilarates other people who are usually religious lunatics, who love the idea, of having a holy excuse for being absolutely, I'll use the Yiddish, wilde Menschen, wild people. But we understand what it means that the world is not teifus makim. What it means is that you don't have to cower. You don't have to worship the world and be afraid of the world. We are above the world. Okay, so, hold on. We're right in the middle of something. That in order that Elam Hazeh should not be teifus makim to him, meaning when you see a bill in the mail and the lizard brain sends these waves of chemicals through your body to give you the energy to fight something or to run away from it. But it's just a piece of paper in an envelope, and nothing really is happening. So to be able to either not have those reactions at all, or at least to have those reactions but to immediately dismiss them, that's what it means that the world is not teifus makim. Hu al yedei shekiyam mitzvahs shalai hu be'efen de b'chol yom kachadoshim. But the way to be in that space where the world isn't the end-all and be-all is by seeing mitzvahs as brand new. In other words, now we understand what it means that mitzvahs are brand new. Mitzvahs are brand new means yichud Sovev and Memaleh, that something is brand new, which implies change, like the Rebbe said, but it's eternal, meaning it's timeless, it was always around, which means that it doesn't change. It didn't just pop up today. So how's that possible? Paradox alert. So that's yichud Sovev and Memaleh, unification of the transcendent and the filling lights. So then you take that very same concept, that's the same perspective, now you have to plug into material and spiritual. You plug that same concept into material and spiritual, where what it means is we don't react to the world not because we're pretending that we're oblivious to it, but rather because we understand its context, that it has significance but not its own. It is significant in as much as it expresses the purpose of the spiritual. So basically, that's the end of chapter 5, but what do we just do here? We reframe this whole concept. Seeing the Torah as new means the ability to sustain in our minds this paradox. The actualization of that paradox, what that looks like in day-to-day life, is a healthy relationship with the material world, whereby everything material only is important to us in as much as it accomplishes the agenda of the spiritual. Yeah.
I think in that relationship, it's almost like living in a one-dimensional world as opposed to a three-dimensional world. One-dimensional is like material is just that is, you have it or you don't, or you have to deal with it or you don't have to deal with it. And then when you look at it from a three-dimensional perspective, from the fact that there's that connection with the mitzvahs are the connection, or the spirituality is it fills in like the color, or like black and white versus color, or
right. So we speak about this a lot. The idea of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. We speak about it maybe in another maamar. When you have one point, or even if you have a point and counterpoint, so you basically have this black and white thinking. Right. And Torah that's why Torah was given in the third month. Shlishi, the idea of threes, is encompassing the opposites, the paradox. So, correct, there is an attitude which is monochromatically spiritual. And I guess that would be asceticism. And there are mystical traditions, such as like Eastern religions, where the way that they be spiritual is by completely denying the significance of the physical. It's an illusion. It's a dream. It doesn't exist. Then there are other views, which probably are unfortunately quite popular in our day and age, where there's only the material. There's only the material. What we're talking about is they both can be real, but they're real within a context. So putting the spiritual over the physical doesn't mean to renounce the physical. It means to have a proper way of relating to it. Now that itself is a paradox, because how do you say something is unimportant and important at the same time? If Hashem is infinite, then nothing here in this fleeting finite world should matter at all. And yet we say, of course it matters. It matters infinitely. Because his infinity is most pronounced when it can be expressed within the finite. So you call this Dira B'Tachtenim, or earlier you referred to it as Dira B'Tachtenim. Yeah, Dira B'Tachtenim, if understood properly, is a paradox. Okay? So that's what we're saying. And what we're saying is the concept of looking at Torah as if it were new all the time is an encapsulation of that paradox.